It's fight, flight, or make out sometimes.
Yes.
I think getting railed with a sundress is the most intimate thing
that a girl can do. Yes.
Because for me, the idea of like floodlighting, it seems so dangerous.
Take it or leave it. Like, this is me at my best and at my worst, and if you can't handle it, whatever.
Totally.
Okay, so obviously Dee is not here, and we have a very special guest joining us for the vodcast and podcast today. Everybody please welcome Jordan Barr.
Hello. Hi.
It's so good to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's beautiful in here. It's warm.
Yes.
I feel safe. I feel ready.
So Jordan, tell everybody about yourself. If you're listening for the first time, you've never heard of Jordan Barr. You might know her from Triple J if you are a Triple J listener, but tell everyone what you're all about.
I do weekend breakfast on Triple J, and I also do stand-up comedy and like TV writing and stuff outside of it too. And yeah, love the hookup. Happy to be here. I guess hookup-wise, do it like the hookup context of me. I am gay.
What's your star sign?
Oh, yeah. Libra sun, Gemini moon, and Aquarius rising, which means that I'm a triple air sign, which also means I have ADHD.
Okay, great. I didn't know like what that meant at all, but I'm really glad you clarified.
Hey,
I also
welcome.
love that you just went straight into like a dating profile moment. I was like, should I give you a prompt right now?
I was just thinking, I was like, do I even need a prompt? Am I ready to come straight?
No, I literally love that you're like, hi, I'm gay. And everyone's like, hi, gay. Great to have you.
It does feel weird saying it. I feel like I haven't said it in a long time because I'm like, it feels like given context. And then when I'm like, oh yeah, I should, like, especially if I'm on stage or something and I say something kind of like edgy or funny about being gay, like, oh, that's gay. And then I'm like, oh, by the way, I think I can say that.
Yeah. Well, you also do another podcast outside of Triple J. Pop Gays.
Pop Gays, that's true. It's a pop culture podcast with my friends Aurelia St. Clair and Charlie Lewin. And we just talk shit, like just about what's going on out there. Sometimes it's deep, sometimes it's really not.
I love it. And you know what's so funny? My first actual interaction with you, I don't know if you remember this, we both did a junket interview with Billy Eichner.
Oh my God, yes!
Back in the day when he had that movie, I can't fucking remember what it was called, but it was like a soppy kind of funny romantic film.
It was Bros.
Bros.
Yes.
Yeah. And I went in there and like I was like feeling really calm about the interview because I was like, I'm such a Billy Eichner fan. If you know Billy Eichner on the street, or Billy on the Street, I should say. I remember being like really calm, seeing you guys went in. I could hear them laughing. You were crushing in there, you and your little gay trio. And I was like, fuck. And then I went in and I bombed my first question and I was just, it was so rough.
It was rough. But you know, we were so nervous
I know.
as well.
And I remember us just like talking about it later and you were like, we were anxious boots. And I was like, why? You did so well. Like, at least you had three of you. I was by myself.
I know.
It was crazy.
It was weird. It was funny as hell, though.
Yeah.
God.
Well, look, obviously we're not here to talk about our celebrity encounters.
No.
We're here to talk about something that I've been seeing a little bit on TikTok. I don't know if you are familiar with like Brene Brown. She's like an author and a researcher.
Yeah. Vulnerability king.
Yes. So she's kind of big in the realm of like hookup realm. But we're going to look at floodlighting. And if you might be guilty of this, maybe you go on a first date and you like fully trauma dump on someone before the entree comes. Like you might be floodlighting, babe. And that's okay. We're going to get into it though. So let's do it. So just like a little content warning before we kind of get into this, we're not going to go into like really hectic detail, but we did have a lot of DMs from people explaining when they have floodlighted or someone's floodlighted them, which involves talking about some traumatic things.
Yeah, totally.
So we're not going to go into, like big detail about it, but if it's something that you maybe like don't want to hear about in terms of like mental health, like childhood difficulties, like sexual assault, stuff like that. There's a couple of mentions in it in this episode. So if that's not like a place for you right now, then maybe just take a pause and come back later. But let's get into it. So have you heard of this term floodlighting before?
I had heard of trauma dumping before, but floodlighting was like knew when you told me that was a topic. And then as like the universe does, my whole algorithm has been people talking about floodlighting since then. And I think it's so interesting.
Yeah. It's really crazy. So a lot of people online are talking about it. And like I said before, Brene Brown was like the original coiner of the term. But if you're wondering exactly what it is, I'll read this definition from this website. It was like a psychology website, so it's like legit, you know. So they said floodlighting is when someone overshares personal details as a way to test the waters, speed up intimacy, or see if the other person can handle these parts of you.
Yeah. That makes sense. I that definition was great, but I just wanted, like, how is it different from like being open or just being vulnerable as well? Because I guess like dating does require a little bit of openness.
Yeah. I think floodlighting like makes it's like a bit more different because it's really, really soon. Like it could be like a first or second date where somebody just like opens up and like floods you with all this information about like really personal things. There's like not enough time for you to like process it potentially. And also in a way, and we'll find out in this app, in that some people kind of use it in like slightly manipulative ways. Like I said, like they're testing you and they're trying to see if you pass these like invisible tests. So I think we're going to like agree like open, honest, like communication is great, but like maybe don't tell someone like your difficult childhood, like, you know, as you're getting drinks on the first date.
It's just a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. I know. So has this ever happened to you? Like, have you floodlighted somebody or has someone done it to you?
I remember getting floodlit.
That kind of sounds fun.
Yeah.
I got so floodlit last night.
Well, wait, it kind of was that because it was like
true.
a date. I used to get so nervous on dates, and I don't recommend this, but I would just get like so drunk with the people that like together.
Yeah.
But I remember I was on a date with this guy, and we just like we're just really sort of throwing it back, and then it became sort of like this floodlighting moment. But I don't think I don't know if that technically works because I feel like we were both gassed up enough that it made sense. But I remember waking up in the morning being like, I don't want to know this about this. And also it never went anywhere. And now I just have all this information about this gentleman.
Yes.
And I'm
yes.
and if I see that he's like, I don't know, I don't see him that often. But every so often I'm like, that's crazy that I have this information in the back of my head.
Yes.
About essentially a stranger.
Yes.
Because it's a first date.
I know. And you know what? It's definitely happened to me, you know, in the girls' bathroom at a club.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think I've said this before in the pod. I'm like, I kind of have the aura of like, please floodlight me. Like people genuinely do tell me some like really fucked up shit within like minutes of meeting me.
That's so funny.
But in the context of like girls' bathroom at the club, maybe Yaya's, shout out Melbourne, like, you know, it feels like an appropriate time and we're all there and like you said, we're like gassed up and we're like, yeah, cool, let's talk about it.
It does feel like if you can feel that the energy's there where everybody's like ready to chat. It's different when you are, I guess, coming out of nowhere. Like, has that ever happened to you? Like,
yes. So I was on a first date and it happened like we were drinking a lot, again, that context, very much like complete stranger, didn't know them from a bar of soap. And as the night was progressing, like I think we were both getting kind of drunk and then he like full opened up and was like telling me about how he was like sexually assaulted by somebody. And it was so jarring and I was like not ready to receive that information at all. Not like in the girls' bathroom where I'm literally like, tell me your whole life story, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
But like in this scenario, I was like, whoa, I don't even know how to handle that, like that comment, and I didn't know where to go with it. And you know what's so fucked up? I literally was like, okay, I'm going to make out with you now to shut you up. And like that was the wrong thing to do. But at the time I was like, I'm panicking.
It's fight, flight, or make out sometimes.
I always say that. I've done that several times.
But it is, well, I guess also because in that moment you just like felt this like incredible responsibility for this person's feelings as well.
Yes.
And also with him opening up like that, I don't know what it might have triggered in you. Like it's so,
yes,
it is a bit, I think, careless sometimes, maybe. But
yes.
I would love to hear other people's point of view on it.
Well, are you going to hear it? We did some polls. Trust and believe.
Fuck, that's great.
We did some polls. That's what we do on The Hookup. If you're not already following us at Triple J The Hookup, we asked, has someone ever floodlighted you? 68% of you said yes and 32% of you said no. So like pretty big numbers there. Let's like round it up to 70% of you have been like, yeah, someone has told me stuff like way too soon. Whether like whatever the reason was, there's so many different ones and we'll get into it. But yeah, we had a couple of DMs. Alex said, post-sex, a girl dumped on me how she lost all her friends because of a toxic ex. She gained weight because of him. She had family loss. I literally couldn't respond because I was so stunned.
Far out.
And like, that's after sex. That's like, oh, you can't even like, oh, that's just so awkward.
And it's also like, I mean, this is where it gets like tricky, where I don't want to shit on anyone for like being open and being vulnerable. But at the same time, I'm like, you're on a date or like you've just fucked someone. Like, can you like keep the vibe up?
Yes.
Just like,
yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I guess like people have different ideas of what opening up means and stuff like that. Maybe that person after sex was like, this is actually a really great opportunity to open up because you felt safe enough to like be intimate with someone.
Totally. That actually does kind of make sense.
And then I guess that there is like, it's that perceived intimacy after sex that like maybe necessarily isn't there.
There's a little shift. There's like, there's a different air about it where you're like, wow, we just did something. Depending on what kind of sex, unless you were like getting railed in a sundress, or was it like making love? Like, I don't know. Like,
I think getting railed with a sundress is the most intimate thing
that a girl can do. Yes, I love that. We also had a DM from Kingy saying, I actually stopped dating because of this happening with men. I had 4 back-to-back dates and all these guys just kept dumping their emotional baggage on me.
See, now that is where we get into this like men don't have friends situation where, or like their relationships with their friends, especially if they're only friends with other males who aren't really like good at talking about their feelings and stuff like that. And they've been brought up to expect women to be that funnel for them, or like you just have a partner, you have this one partner that you put everything on.
Yep.
It's no surprise that like guys are just floodlighting like crazy on first dates to be like, I haven't told anyone this in 1,000 years, but I have a water my ass.
Yes. No, that
Medical.
actually does track. Look, we got a voice memo from Bridget talking about this. So she met this guy on Hinge, and within 15 minutes of their date, he started to like go fully into detail about his past.
I am very open about hearing about people's histories and, you know, things that they want to share, but this was just way, way too much, way too soon. He told me about his history of drug use, like pretty intense drugs. He told me about how he started selling drugs, was in kind of a gang, how he almost ended up in prison, how he was a member of Narcotics Anonymous, and like slay, love that the man has brought his life back together. But it was a lot. I very much felt like I had to be a therapist. It made me feel, really uncomfortable. Obviously, it was so much. It was so much.
Yeah, so that word therapist came up a lot for people in our DMs. Like everyone was like, I'm not your therapist.
Yeah. And it is still like a date or a hang. It's supposed to be a conversation, and it does, especially in that situation, it sounded like Bridget didn't really get a word in edgewise. Like it was just constantly like taking care of this person and assuring them that it's okay, which it is, like to come out the other side of like being involved in drugs and stuff like that, huge. But yeah, that's where it's like a fine line as well of being like, I don't know what some people consider trauma and others don't as well. Like, because he might have been like, yeah, this is kind of normal stuff. If he's talking in meetings all the time, he's like, yeah, this is a big part of me. This is, and it like wherever he is on his sobriety journey too, it's like, this is like a really defining moment, yada, yada. But then at the same time, it's like, it's a bit much to like unload the trauma that led to your sobriety and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think you're so right as well, like in terms of like people's perception of what trauma is and what isn't.
Yeah.
So like you were saying, for him, it's like, it's an everyday matter of fact part of his life. And actually Bridget did mention in her original DM, she was like, I'm really straighty 180. So that really threw her for a loop. Like she was not ready to like hear that and was like, I guess I don't have friends or family who have been through something like that.
Yeah.
So it would have been quite shocking.
I mean, I do, especially with the substance abuse stuff. Like I have, I know people who are in AA and NA, and they talk about the dating world is pretty hard for them.
Right.
And it would be interesting, like trying to navigate being like, most people when they catch up go for a date, like you and I apparently, we're like, it's a piss up, let's go.
Yeah. Yes.
So to like, how do you tell people you don't drink, and then how do you tell people you don't drink without? I guess some people don't know how, like, what the boundaries are of being like, oh, I'm sober, don't want to talk about it right now. Maybe date 5, or you know what I mean?
That's
like,
so true. Yeah.
as opposed to this guy who apparently like seemed to be like, I need to get it all off my chest.
Totally.
Which I don't think is right either.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, we did another poll. We said, have you ever floodlighted someone? In all of hookup history, Jordan Barr, we have never had a 50-50 split, completely 50-50, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
They knew you were coming on this episode.
Yeah.
They said,
they
let's
knew.
make history. So
Confuses them more.
this is crazy. So like 50% of you were like, yeah, I've done it. And 50% said, no, I've never done it. And I found like from the DMs that we got from this, like a lot of people were basically realizing they were like, oops, that's me. I did that.
For sure.
So going back to that definition of like what is floodlighting, it's like to test the waters, to see if people can handle parts of you.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people like got in touch with us about. They say that it was kind of almost like a vetting process. And we got this voice memo from Sam.
Yeah, so I was seeing someone for a couple of months, and only in the last few months post the breakup have I realised that I have a tendency to do this. I don't know if it's like a self-sabotage tactic or what, but I definitely think it manufactures this like false sense of intimacy, and maybe in some way you're kind of like vetting them to see how they're going to respond if you kind of trauma dump.
It is interesting, like, about the false sense of intimacy as well, of being like, well, if I'm going to be romantically involved with this person, they have to know everything about me, or like they have to know the deepest, darkest parts of me. It's like, well, that can come naturally, like over time. But it's so funny. I could hear like the realization in their voice.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's me.
I know. It's really interesting. We had so many people like that. Renee was somebody who actually definitely did it like with a bit more intent and purpose.
Sure.
So basically when I was dating and I'd met someone with potential, I'd floodlight them with details that I left a long-term relationship in which I was emotionally abused, sexually manipulated and cheated on. And looking back on it now, I think I did it to see how they would respond so I could gauge their level of maturity and if they understood my trauma or just blasé to it. In that case, I'd just end it. Like, from what I've been through, I didn't want to get messed around again or have to deal with someone who has no idea about that kind of trauma.
You know what? I really get that.
Yeah.
If you've been really burnt by somebody or a lot of people, maybe, and you're just like, I'm not here to waste time. Like maybe it's better to do it, but it's also you're running a risk. Like you're really throwing the dice and being like, I don't know how the other person's going to respond. But
totally.
For her, she's like, I don't care how you respond. If you respond well, like you passed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's an interesting litmus test. And I think like hearing that perspective, because for me, the idea of like floodlighting, it seems so dangerous. Like, because I'm like, you're like putting your heart on your sleeve. You, especially if it's like an open wound as well. It seems really scary to just offload all that for some people. So hearing that, I'm like, yeah, but then at the same time, it does help you sort of navigate the world a bit better to just like clear out the muck if you're like, nah, they can't handle it. But I do wonder, like, are you setting yourself up unfairly? Because if you unload all that trauma straight away, people aren't going to have the perfect response.
Yeah.
Or like people could be with good intentions still respond pretty poorly just because we're not all therapists. Like we don't know how to like handle this stuff. If somebody opens up about abuse and things like that, it's like I hope to say the best thing, but I don't know if it's the right thing.
Yeah, that is actually a really interesting point because I'm like, what do you, if you were to floodlight like Renee and just get it out in the open and you're intending to filter people out.
Yeah.
What is the perfect response for you? Like, are you hoping that someone's going to like comfort you in that moment, or are they going to just like acknowledge it and be like, okay, thank you so much for telling me? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what is the response that you're after there is a really good question.
Yeah. And I wonder if, it'd be so interesting to find out if Renee knows as well. Like you might know, you might be like, I'll just get the vibe.
Yeah, you just know in the moment.
Yeah. But then at the same time, I totally understand wanting to do that, especially if you've been through enough. And especially if you're like, especially like if you are a woman or someone with a uterus and you're thinking about settling down and having kids and stuff like that, it does get to a point where you're like, I don't have time.
Yes.
Like not to like push the already annoying rhetoric
clock,
about that shit. But, you know, for some people that's realistic and it's like, I don't want to fuck around too much. Like,
see, I was coming into this episode being like, nah, anti-floodlighting, but am I becoming a floodlighting apologist? Renee? No. I still think I'm going to be like time and place for it. But there's some nuance and we'll definitely get into it. We did have a DM from Rustin actually who said queer people trauma bond sometimes. It's sad, but it's a thing. Is this something that you can relate to?
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about like the floodlighting and stuff like that. And I was like, did my partner and I just floodlight like crazy? Like
floodlight into a relationship.
I guess because it felt fine and it felt good. But like, yeah, I guess just talking about like, especially because when my partner and I got together, we were still very much like a baby queers for lack of a better phrase. But like we were still new to the world and stuff like that. So it was like, you couldn't help but sort of, I guess, be like, this is my experience or this is what I've gone through. Or this is my trauma. Can we like, especially like intimately, like it felt good to navigate it that way. So I think that makes so much sense. And I do know, especially like a lot of queer people who grew up in like regional areas and stuff like that, dating is often like, if you date, like I've got a friend who was on the dating scene for a while who grew up in a small town, and like whenever he dated someone who was also from a small town, like the first couple hours of the date was just like swapping stories of like what went down. And it was like from the way that he described it, it seemed cathartic.
Yes.
Like feels like a nice way to get it out there.
Well, in a regional town, it's like you only have the one other gay in the village.
Exactly.
So you're like, let's talk about it. Like that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like I think like the word like trauma bond definitely came up a few times in our DMs, and it definitely like it feels like something that like a lot of queer people have just like really experienced, and it's really important for them to be able to do it. Like you said, if you're isolated in that area, like it's really hard.
Yeah, you just want to, as much as possible, explore queer joy too. And I think if you're like stepping into a relationship and stuff like that, it comes with all the undertows of everything that's happened before. But I think you would want to make sure that you're not so tightly trauma bonded that the only thing holding you together is the bad shit.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, there's got to be some joy in there too.
Man, we could do a whole other ep on trauma bonding, but
yeah, true.
Another time. Something that I was thinking about as well in terms of this like vetting process and just getting it out really quickly, it reminded me of the most recent season of Love is Blind.
I love that show.
It's so good.
Can't get
Do you
enough.
and I were talking about this, and she was like, if I had to do a reality TV show, gun to my head, it would be Love is Blind.
I want to do it.
Me
so
too.
bad.
I want to do it so bad.
I would also just love to like be in the like girls' quarters. Like I don't have to do the dating, but I would love to just like talk to them.
Yeah.
And just to be like, hey, he's bullshitting you.
Yes. So if you don't know what Love is Blind, it's like basically this social experiment when they like put people into these pods. They don't see the other person, but I think it's like maybe 14 days straight, and they never see them, and they like connecting with people, and then they end up choosing someone who they basically get engaged and marry.
Hearing you describe it really makes it sound like the Stanford like college like experiment. It sounds like
terrible.
a 70s psychology thing before they had any ethics.
Yes, exactly. It is really weird, but it's really good TV.
Oh, so good.
We would slay it.
Yeah.
But there was this girl in the most recent season, and she was connecting with these two boys, and she basically at one point, like it wasn't like a first date or anything, but she basically was like, hey, this is all my trauma, like this is what I've been through in my life, and was like really candid about it. And like genuinely, like the guys were like, could not handle it. Like they really did. They were like, oh, maybe you're not the one for me. And in that social scenario, they were like, but I've got this other girl who seems really chill and fun and has no trauma. So like, I'm going to go with her. So that's like not a good example of like a real life situation, but it did kind of remind me of that.
Yeah.
The way people are like, take it or leave it. Like this is me at my best and at my worst. And if you can't handle it, whatever.
Totally. And
So,
this is kind of a binary way of looking at it, but isn't it so interesting that like when men open up and are vulnerable with their prospective partners, it's like largely seen as like a nice thing, something that's like beautiful and open and great. And then when women open up like that and sort of release all their trauma, it's like, oh, maybe she's crazy.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
She's broken goods.
Yeah.
Like,
I
she's
have to deal with
damaged.
this.
Yeah, and maybe it's like the whole damsel in distress kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like they want to be able to like help you out and feel really strong and heroic, but
They want a damsel in distress, but they don't want PTSD.
exactly. Yes. Well, we got this DM as well from Tom saying it definitely works as a screening tactic because if someone did that to me, I would be running the other way. That's fair. So there you go. So another reason why people tend to floodlight is, like we were saying before, that fake intimacy. They're trying to speed run it, right?
Yeah.
And that is like a huge thing. So Hannah shared a DM with us. She said, calculated oversharers. They make the other person feel so special that they would feel comfortable enough with them to share some really deep things. She goes, oh, I'm not flattered. Not only do I find out that they do this with every chick they fancy, no thanks, red flag. So like people are doing it in a way that's like, I'm going to try and build this bridge really quickly with you on a first date.
Yeah.
Because it makes you feel really good and it makes me feel good. But sometimes it doesn't make the other person feel good at all.
No. And like, are there like nefarious goals in there as well? Like,
Yeah.
like if you're just like creating again this like false sense of intimacy, does it trick people into like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I get it.
I don't think it's like a good move to speedrun that kind of stuff. And it's interesting because like talking about it with friends, like, you know, when you like your friends are like going on a date with somebody and then like they maybe trauma dumped on the first day and then the next day they get a text and it's like, wow, I really felt like we connected last night. Like I really feel like you get me. Like no one gets me. And it was like, babe, I was just like your therapist for like 30, like, you know, an hour or so or whatever it was. Like,
and it also comes back to the thing of being like, what is considered like trauma and what's just like, because I'm a chronic oversharer, but I wouldn't think now, like thinking about like Hannah's message, I'm like, oh, maybe I am much more of a culprit.
no,
I don't know. Like, I feel like I remember getting texts from people being like, hey, we really connected. And I'd be like, did we? And they're probably like, I was your
so
therapist
funny.
for an hour. I was like,
Yeah.
that was just another chat.
This is a normal date for me. That's so funny. Like we were saying, it kind of like rolls the dice on how someone's going to respond.
Yeah.
And I was reading this like psychology website talking about it and they were like, floodlighting isn't just about what's shared, it's also about what is expected in return. Many people who floodlight don't just open up, they unconsciously wait for the person to match their level of vulnerability.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that?
Well, I think that's exactly like the issue with floodlight. Like that really like, as much as I'm like, I'd love people to be vulnerable and I think it's important to open up. And if you want to pursue a relationship with someone, you absolutely need to talk about these things, but it does, especially on a first date, like the responsibility on the other person is just way too high. And I think if you're just willy-nilly throwing stuff around, even if it's stuff that you're like, I'm comfortable talking about this, if it's something that happened a while ago and you're healed and like I'm comfortable talking about this, doesn't mean that the other person is, and you don't know what you're unearthing.
Yeah.
And then also, again, if they respond in the wrong way, are you like ruining your week?
Yes. Yes. 100%. We actually got this DM from Angie. She was like, I'm not your therapist. Don't trauma dump on me. And then don't get upset when I don't respond how you wanted me to. So not only can you ruin someone else's week, you might ruin your own week and be like, fuck, they didn't say what I wanted. And like, I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
And da, 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 like all of that.
Do you think it's fair to floodlight if you are okay with being disappointed with someone's response, like with Renee before, who's like sort of doing it more as a tactic?
I think you have to have that. If you are genuinely out there just trying to vet people, I think you have to be so ready to be like, well, that they didn't respond that way.
Yeah.
But then going back to what you said, it's like, how can you give the perfect response?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
There is none. Like you could be feeling one way or the other. I don't know. I feel like it's just not a good vibe. I think like, yeah, again, going back to like how it's going to be received and like how people might expect it, a feeling to be reciprocated. Like I just remembered this time that I floodlit in a friend scenario.
Yeah.
And like I did it, I think, to like speed up the intimacy and to like become friends with somebody quickly. So it was like back in the day when I did kids TV, we were on a shoot. We were in this like OB van. OB, God. Outdoor broadcast. We were in a van. We were going to a shoot and something came up and it was like a traumatic topic where it was like, hey, has anyone experienced this thing? And then I was like really new to the team and I was like, I don't know what the fuck was going through my head. I wanted to like feel relatable and like get in with the gang. And I was like, yeah, me actually, that happened. It was really fucked up. You could fucking hear a pin drop in the van going 110 down the fucking highway, bro. Like, it was bad. And everyone was like, whoa. And no one knew how to like handle the information. And like, ever since then, that kind of like scarred me. I was like, I'm never going to do that again. I still like kind of gag at it. I'm like, ugh.
That feeling when you're like late, you probably like are about to like hit the hay at night, and every time you're like eyes light up thinking about that moment.
It's like in my top 3 rotation. They've got 2 others. We won't go into it now. But yeah. We also did some research on like why we do this as well. So we obviously like talked about the intimacy thing and like everything. Oh, by the way, we have show notes. So every time I'm like quoting like, I found this on a website about psychology, like they're in there. So if you want to go and read it, go off.
It's cited.
It's cited. The source is there. So I found this article talking about some research that could potentially be linked to floodlighting, and it's all about social media. So get this. A 2022 study published in Psychological Reports found that anxiety, attention seeking, and social media addiction were significantly associated with excessive oversharing online among adolescents. While this study focuses on digital self-disclosure, it highlights the role of underlying emotional needs, such as a desire for validation or difficulty regulating boundaries in shaping oversharing behaviors. That was me in that fucking car, basically having no idea for a boundary, and also just the desire for validation and attention.
Yeah.
Crazy.
To get a reaction, or to get like to literally have them like what you've said, you know?
Do you feel like then social media is actually kind of playing a role in like the way that we are like oversharing on dates and stuff like that? Like, do you think that we could make this link? Is this too far-fetched?
No, I think that there's totally a link there. I think that like, especially if you are, if your dopamine receptors are as cooked as mine are from like years of phone usage.
Guilty.
But I'll have a thought, or like there'll be something that I want to share online or like post to my stories and stuff like that. I'm pretty lapsed with it, but there's been a couple times where I'm typing it out, or I'm going to have a go or open up about this thing, and then I'll be like, wait, what do I want? What do I want from this? Do I just want people to respond? Do I just want people to like heart react? How is that? And then like on the other, it's like you know, there are so many positives and negatives of people talking about mental illness online. It has been so helpful in so many ways.
Yes,
But then at the same time, I think that we all think that we have the language and the expertise to talk about things like PTSD, like horrific trauma and things like that. And I don't think we do.
It's all that pop psych stuff that's like been going so super crazy in the last like, you know, couple of years. Like Jonah Hill being like, oh, you need to respect my boundary by not wearing a bikini and surfing, to his like fucking Olympic surfer girlfriend at the time. Yeah. And he was using all that pop psych bullshit. And it's like, you're not a therapist. You don't even like, you don't know what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it bleeds into dating and into these like friendship scenarios as well. Or like of just being like, especially with the bigger things that you want to share eventually, but just if you're like in the moment and hyped up, or like if you're in the car with your colleagues and you're like, wait, is this actually beneficial to me, or was there simply a pause in the conversation? And
no, so this literally, I can't stop thinking about this meme. Let me find it. I literally saved it because of this episode. This, like that.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm so guilty of this.
Dude,
like,
same.
Oh my God.
I think that's why this like floodlighting thing has actually been like because I'm like, am I doing this to my barista? Like, I'm just like, just a pause in conversation. I'm like, anyway, I haven't walked right for years.
Yes, like literally. Oh my God, it's so true. And like, you know what's so funny as well on TikTok when you see like a lot of top comments at the moment, they're like, by the way, this is my first impression of you.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Or like, wait, what's the other one? You know, like everybody getting too comfy on this app. It's
legit.
Like we're all like majorly oversharing online, and like we're so glued to the phone. So it's like, why wouldn't it be seeping into our dating and our friendships?
100%.
There's no way.
It even like at the risk of being like self-indulgent here, but like it happens in stand-up for me a lot. Like especially when I'm doing shows out of town, or like festival shows where it's like a comedy. It's not a comedy audience. They're people who are coming for the first time or blah, blah, blah. And I remember I was doing this run in Adelaide, and I was just like, I feel like it takes like 20 minutes for the audience to like warm up. Like there's something wrong with the gear at the top. And then another comic came and saw it and was like, yeah, no one knows who you are. And you just come out with all this weird shit. And it's like, well, it's not like trauma or anything, but it's like, give them a couple like ways to get to know you, introduce yourself, and then you can bring out the weirder stuff, and then you can, and they feel safer. I did it and it was like night and day.
Wow.
And it truly is like, and I'm like, this is like dating. You have to like give them a second, let them like find your pace, your rhythm, your tone. And then you can be like, anyway, you ever shot a gun?
Okay, take notes. Future comics listening to and watching this podcast. Damn, that was a masterclass.
Thanks.
Wow.
I didn't intend for it to be that way, but here we are.
Oh, I love it. I love it. On the contrary, en contraire, a lot of people actually really liked floodlighting and they liked receiving it. They appreciate it. We got this voice memo from Alice explaining how she went on a date with a guy and he just like was really upfront with it, and she was like, I would have preferred this exactly like how you did it. Like you told me everything up front so I knew what I was getting into.
Yeah.
He was very honest with me about his past. He got involved for a lot of years with drugs and he had a very rough childhood. So he kind of just let me know that without explaining too much about it, without telling me in a heavy way or in a way that like I felt responsible to make him feel better about that or anything like that. It kind of just saw me as a fact, something that happened to him. At first was a bit of a lot to hear from someone that you're interested in. But I appreciate it a lot since the beginning, the fact that he was so upfront about it and so honest about it. And I think I really appreciated it, because I think if he would have told me that a few months into dating, I would have thought that he was trying to hide that part of him from me. And I think it would have been a bigger deal to me. So I think that was beautiful because it set our relationship up and we started off with honesty and like just being ourselves without having to hide from each other.
What do you think of that?
That's true. And I think the word honesty is like what really stuck out. And I guess like that's the difference between, it sounds like that was more of a conversation and a sharing of information rather than a test or a dump or an assumption that the other person doesn't also have something that they have gone through. It felt like the way that Alice described it, that there was a bit more of a back and forth, and it was like, I guess it always is this, but it felt like they got like more of a given context rather than like ra-da-da-da-da.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And, we had a DM from Brittany saying the floodlighting, in my case, came later in the relationship, which in hindsight I would have appreciated knowing a lot earlier. So there are people who want that honesty up front, but you're right. I think it did sound like an honest exchange, which is really cool. I guess I wanted to ask the question as well. Is there ever a time where people feel like floodlighting is okay and it's like understandable or appropriate, or is it always going to be a red flag? We had a bunch of people like come through on the DMs about this. Dave saying it's always a red flag. We don't know each other yet. Going slow with unpacking trauma is important. We also had this voice memo from Alex who kind of like was coming from a place where she realized that she was floodlighting, but she was sort of like in hindsight was like, I was really in the thick of it. And while it's not maybe appropriate for her, she was like, it's kind of understandable with where I was coming from.
So I guess my problem with floodlighting was when I was trying to date, I was also still overcoming a lot of trauma, and then I was kind of trauma dumping that on a lot of first dates, thinking maybe that it was honesty. I think essentially it was that I felt quite unlovable because of my trauma, so I felt like I had to warn people about the trauma. But yeah, I recognised after a few times that that was not the way to go.
Oh, I feel sad hearing that.
Yeah.
Like feeling like you need to warn someone.
Yeah, especially if it's really weighing down on you, it would feel like that.
I feel like I understand where Alex is coming from.
Yeah.
Tim did DM us as well, and he said, I did floodlight once and it made me realize I wasn't ready to date and I needed more time. So there were a lot of people who had like a lot of reflection in the DMs being like, yeah, and I needed to not be dating because I was doing
true.
that.
I guess it comes back to like whether it's a wound or like a scar, like have you like healed enough? You still wear it, it's everywhere, or is it still like seeping past?
Didn't you? I feel like I've heard you say this before, wound or scar thing.
Yeah,
I love it.
I think it's so good.
It's such a good analogy.
Yeah.
Obsessed with it.
I can't. Oh, I know who said it to me. Actually, it's pretty beautiful. It was Cal Wilson said it was like, people want to see scars, not wounds. But do you know why she said that as well? Because she was like, people just want to feel safe, especially in a dating environment. Well, it wasn't in the context of dating, but I think it makes sense as well. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of responsibility with dating, romance and intimacy. It's like, yeah, and it is unfortunately like so much of it is based on gut, which sucks because you wish that there was a rule to this. I wish I could say floodlighting is bad all the time, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. That's what this show is all about. It's very nuanced. It's not black and white.
Yeah.
Look, Jordan, this has been so much fun chatting about this with you.
Thank you. Thank
feel
you for
like
having
we
me.
had such a good conversation, and like thank you so much to everyone who sent a DM and a voice memo on this. It was really interesting, and hopefully we can all come away from it and understand how to have a first date a little bit better.
Yeah. I'm more confused, but
Me every week, babe. Oh, Jordan, where can people follow you?
oh yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at jbar_666.
J-Bar. Why have I never even heard of your, like, that's so cool. Come on,
J-Bar.
J-Bar. I
Let's
love
go.
it. Yeah, like, thank you so much again for coming on. We love and appreciate you.
Oh my God, thank you for having me.
And we'll see you in the DMs. Bye.